Yes, I was born in Turkey to a family that owns a tannery, and my dad loved having me around in the business, and the chemistry of the leather tanning was so attractive to me at the time. I was running behind the masters and technicians in our tannery, trying to learn the craft, and it was a game for me. I was there after work. I was there all my free time in summer vacations and all that time. So it started as a play and it turned into a lifetime passion. So I have been making tanning leather, starting with the rawhide, mainly the sheepskins for garment production. And then I moved on to cowhide production in different tanneries around the world. I actually ran a tannery in Turkmenistan for a while. I ran a tannery in Armenia for a short while before I moved to the United States. And I was involved in many different types of leather production during my time in the tanning industry. And when I moved to the United States in 2009, 2010, I took a pause because the leather was not a big thing over here. And I did a bunch of different things, setting up my life, cab driving, truck driving, going back to school for MBA and all that stuff. Eventually in 2016, I came back to leather, this time in the crafting wallets, bags side of things. I self-learned things on YouTube, how to design a wallet, how to cut and sew leather into a wallet. So it started in the spare bedroom of our apartment. First time I was making something in the craft side of leather world, and that turned into my brand today, Pegai, and that kind of uh, gave me a further exposure into the leather world, starting with the tannery, now going to the end user as a leather craft. So to me, quality leather, the most authentic leathers are minimally finished leathers. I usually name them as aniline, semi-aniline finished leathers or pull-up distress finished leathers because I get to see, feel, touch the variant beauty of natural leather, the grain, the marks of the animal's life. If I can see those, if I can touch those, I get that lively vibe from leather. To me, that's the most beautiful leather. And to make those leathers, you really need the high quality material. Usually 5 to 10% of raw hides are qualified to be finished minimally. They're clean enough for that kind of finish. The rest, 90-95%, has to go through some form of standardization. They're still leather, they're still good, especially if it's done respectfully, that standardizing finishes produce beautiful leathers as well, but they're not as special as those authentic, clean, and minimally finished leathers, in my opinion. So that's what I'm looking for in the main market. But to main market big brands credit, it is really hard to find and work with those leathers in the scales of main mass production brands. So they somehow go to standardized leather finishes, and that makes them really not truly special or high quality in the authentic artisan sense, and that kind of turns me down from some of the brand's leather selections. So far, my experience is Hermes and Bottega Veneta is very respectful in leather selections they have. They're utilizing leathers that are finished, standardized to a certain extent because they're brand. They have to provide similar looking items around the globe, but they're still respectful to the nature of leather. They're doing those standardization finishes in a very respectful and tasteful way. So it doesn't bother me. I'm pleased with the leather selections. Mostly I saw from those two brands. The rest were not that impressive so far. And recently I got a bag from Chloe, which is promising. Most of the leathers I saw over there was nice. I'm looking forward to inspecting that in the upcoming weeks. And one of the other big brands that was impressive in the leather selections was Loewe. They used a calf skin that was very, very tastefully finished. It was a beautiful leather selection for a large brand of their size. If you don't know anything about leather, leather is a feel, and leather is a feeling thing. So you look at the leather to see some form of imperfection, variation in grain structures, some natural marks. Those are usually hallmarks of true, clean artisan leathers that are minimally respectfully finished. It's really hard to find these kind of leathers in the mass market. So you will mostly see a standardized look uniform all around for their business purposes. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but you can know at that point it's not truly spectacular or very special leather. It is probably a good quality leather, finished, mass produced, standardized for a brand purpose. And for you to make a decision on that, if it's worth it or not, is usually if you're looking for a good quality leather product or if you're looking for a status and prestige. In my experience so far, all of these super brands are selling you as status and prestige. It's not, the prices are not about the leather quality. They have high quality items, but the price is not only to justify that, it's to justify the logo and status comes with that brand or the product. If you're into it, you can decide if the price you're seeing is worth it. And at the end of the day, it's never about the leather at those super brand price points. But there are alternative brands who doesn't sell you status and prestige. And in that case, you will see much lower price points. And again, leather is not a cheap item. Good quality leather is definitely not cheap, but it's never an astronomical price tag like you will see in super brands. Leather bags usually are made with cow hides, calf skins. It's a durable type of leather due to its fiber structure. Also, lambskins are used in a lot of bags, especially Chanel uses a lot of lambskins. Bottega uses a lot of lambskins tastefully, beautifully. Lambskin is a lot more delicate, but also softer and has its own elegance to it. It depends on the application. And if the finish is done respectfully, minimally, that we can see the grain of the leather, we can touch and feel that tight grain, the variations around the bag. It's usually those are the good signs. Your touch will tell a lot about the leather quality once you're inspecting an item. The smell, always pleasant and earthy smells, is always a good sign. The blending of the feeling you get from the look, the touch, and the smell of that leather will tell you a lot. And eventually, you read the labels and see what type of leather the brand is using because the brands and artisans who are proud of their leathers, they love to talk about their leather. In the descriptions, they will always say aniline, semi-aniline, full grain leather, lambskin, calfskin, vegetable tan, some identifier keywords, positive keywords they want to talk about to communicate this is a good leather selection that they're proud of. That's always a great sign. And if there's not much things in the description, they're too vague and general, like cowhide or genuine leather, then you might know there's not much to talk about leather. It's not about leather, and you can make your mind about the price. The craftsmanship for a leather bag is hidden in the details, the stitches, the edge paint, the accessories, the hardware used, and any kind of improper assembly sign or markings on the craftsmanship side of things. So when people are putting this bag together, did they pay attention to their sewing and all the stitch marks or lines are straight? Nothing seems off and varying stitching steps. On the edge paint, when you look, you see a well-rounded covered paint if it's a edge painted item, or if you're seeing layers still under the paint, which means it's not painted enough. So those little details, if you just look closely to the item, will tell you cues of how delicate and detail-oriented the crafting person was behind this item. And there's also two different types of crafting in this leather space, especially these days. One is hand stitch, saddle stitch crafts. Hermes does partially this in most of their crafts, and some local artisans, individual artisans do this, which is much more time consuming and skill requiring way of sewing leather. All the holes are punched by hand, then everything is stitched by hand by needles. These items are usually more premium because of the work they require. They're more expensive. They're gonna last longer too. Saddle stitching is stronger than the machine stitching. Even if one stitch is broken, it's not gonna come apart. All stitches are locked individually. On the other hand, most of the products are machine sewn, which is still a hand making process. There's so many steps people are carrying this craft through from cutting to sewing in a machine. But it's more of a manufacturing setup made in batches. It's quicker, it's cheaper than hand stitching techniques. So it's less premium, not to say it's very inferior, but it is um, it is more of a factory way of making leather. So when you're looking at a product from a brand, most likely it's machine sewn. I think it's still considered handmade, in my opinion. Most of the leather crafts are handmade these days, even if coming from the bigger brands, they're just made in factory setups. And as long as everything is properly done, spaced, cleaned, and paid attention to all those details, I think it can be signs of high craftsmanship. So I think leather itself is a sustainable material because as the starting point of leather, the rawhide is a byproduct of the meat industry. And as humanity consumes meat, creates demands for meat, animals are going to be raised and harvested for the meat. And the rawhide is a garbage at that point that's going to go to trash because of the putrefaction tendencies in a few days if nobody touches it. So taking leather and giving it second life is, to me, it's a great way of upcycling a material. Otherwise, that will go to waste. And as long as we're careful on tanning practices of leather, just to be respectful to the environment and sustainability measures, ethical business practices who are involved in this crafting process, I think leather is one of the most sustainable materials any brand can work with in the fashion. The only thing I can say is leather is not much of a fit for fast fashion, in my opinion. First, it's durable. Fast fashion usually is better off using cheaper, less durable materials. I'm not a big fan of fast fashion. I love durable and timeless things, and leather is a perfect fit for this. That adds another sustainability aspect, in my opinion, to this material because of its durability and long-lasting aspect and features of it. We're gonna buy less, we're gonna consume less, we're gonna create less waste as a result. So leather is, I think, as sustainable as a material can get out of all the options we have in front of us. And a lot of luxury brands are testing with different options like vegan leathers to cater for people who are against animal product usage, vegan lifestyle. I have full respect for it as long as it's coming from bio-based, vegetable, plant-based materials. There's honest efforts going into the space as an alternative in the leather world. But there are also huge efforts to use this vegan trend to market their P leather, which was called fake leather, PU leather back in the day. Now they just slap the vegan label on it, which is not true representation of vegan lifestyle. It's a oil-based product, plastic coming from oil industry, and I don't think a lot of vegan friends will appreciate this being labeled as vegan leather as an alternative. as long as you understand what you're buying in that space, I think everything is good. As I mentioned, Pegai is my brand, and it's evolving into a space where I would like to provide a value to the leather consumer, blending two worlds of high fashion brands and artisan craftsmen. So I can describe it this way. Artisans, small shops love to work with natural leathers that I described that I love, minimally finished. They're somewhat non-standard and requires a lot more nuance in the crafting, so we can see and embrace this natural imperfections of leather. And while loving these unique leathers, they lack most of the time they lack the sophistication of these big brands have, creating fashion pieces, more complex designs using these leathers. On the other hand, the big brands are really strong in the fashion design sense and sophisticated crafting techniques due to their capabilities. But their size doesn't allow them to use these very artisan leathers, these craftsman love. So what I'm trying to do with Pegai is as I go around the world, I find these specialty tanneries making unique artisan leather articles, and I take it into my workshop, which is pretty capable at this point with masters coming from major brands that they have done production for. And we apply these artisanal leathers into sophisticated and more developing sophisticated designs that we are adding into our Pegai portfolio. So the leather consumer can see a unique blend of artisan leathers into sophisticated design um, pieces. So that's my value proposition with Pegai into the leather business, leather world. Hopefully, I am satisfying a need that wasn't commonly readily available in the market before. So Pegai is a small shop. We have about 35 artisans in our workshop in Turkey. We are creating things in small batches. I design my shapes and I find my leathers, I apply it to it. So there's a limitation to what we do because of the leathers we select. These leathers are not available in millions of square foot to become a mass market product, or our shop is not that big and I don't want to give it out to outsource my production. I like the control of the quality. I like to work with my own artisans as a family setup. So, due to those reasons, I see this business not going way too bigger than it is right now. I really enjoy the size and the workload we have, the customer interactions we have. Hopefully, we're going to maintain it in an organic, slow growth phase, but I don't see Pegai being a big mass market brand where we can actually keep this very keen eye on the artisan leather articles and still control the quality and craftsmanship we apply on these designs we are creating in-house.